So the Moro arc has concluded with the Z fighters celebrating their win, but within the crater a lump of tissue bobs around collecting together, revealing that 7-3 is somehow alive and kicking. Okay, maybe not kicking. Jargo heads back to Earth to verify the android's death thanks to some hints from the inmates, however there's no trace of 7-3 to be found. Assuming the job's done, the patrolman heads to Vought to try some milk with Homelander, but some aliens have already retrieved 7-3's head before blasting away where it's delivered to their master Goichi, who intends to rule the universe. Another aircraft has chosen Goichi as its prey, so the pilot boards onto the ship, forcing the guards to be deployed. These next couple pages remind me of the hallway scene in Rogue One, especially with these soldiers wearing a similar attire to the rebels, but they instead are electrocuted by a man called Granola who continues marching onward. His path is then barricaded by multiple 7-3 units, but an AI named Oatmeal informs Granola that none of them are the primary target. The crystals are shattered on the 7-3 units, deactivating the horde for Granola to infiltrate the next room, where he spots an android floating in a tank that's confirmed to be the exact unit he's been seeking for. You've got to give props to Super, cause for once they had seamlessly transitioned from one arc to another. Anywho, we then see a flashback to an absolute massacre orchestrated by the Saiyans as Great Apes, notably one monkey who peers through the ceiling with a distinct scar on their face. Granola gets startled by this, realizing he's dreaming again, so he chooses not to bother going back to sleep. Oatmeal then wonders if he still despises Frieza's army, to which Granola confirms, but his AI companion advises him to just let it go since Frieza had died many years ago. To this day, the Cerulean is triggered at the barbarous apes within the Emperor's army for wiping out his race, but understands he can't get revenge due to the monkeys being wiped out by a meteor. That prompts Oatmeal to clarify who he's referring to, so Granola affirms he's indeed talking about the Saiyans. Swiftly it transitions to the monkey Goku, who grabs the Oracle fish for Whis to administer an injection, putting the fish to bed. But can we just focus on the prime character development, cause Goku kept his composure this time at the sight of a needle. Anyway, the reason the Angel had injected the Oracle fish with vitamins was to solve its insomnia, since a lack of sleep could be a bad omen for the future. With the cure administered, Goku preps his training with Whis by activating perfected Ultra Instinct, but hits the
Bye, have a great time.
Multiple clones of the Saiyan split from above surrounding Whis, so the Angel simply turns each of them into dust, where he finally meets the real Goku at the sky limit before styling on him. The Angel reminds Goku that the ability to wield Ultra Instinct should not be the final goal, while shooting hoops with the Saiyan's body, stating he's got a greater command over it than Meris does, which also applies to the Grand Priest. That's when Goku acknowledges that he's at the bottom of the leaderboard, but Whis cheers him up by exciting the Saiyan on his potential to grow. Meanwhile, Vegeta tells Beerus that he won't try to master Ultra Instinct, promising to surpass Goku in a way that suits him, so the Destroyer breeds new optimism within the Prince, exclaiming there's another godly technique on the table. Vegeta pleads to be taught, which Beerus quickly declines, but encourages the Saiyan to steal some tricks of his as the Destroyer goes to exercise. At the other end of the universe, Granola goes to deliver the android, but gets interrupted by the mercenary Soshiru, who's trying to get the split of the bounty. However, the Cerulean puts a gun to his head, ordering for him not to touch, before being greeted by his higher-ups, the Heaters. And their leader Elec insists that obtaining 7-3 will allow them to gain the most intel in Universe 7 rather than striving for physical oppression. It's then come to his attention that Frieza had been revived, which Elec finds bad for business, but upon hearing that sentence, Granola is filled with ecstasy at a chance to avenge his people. The Cerulean demands for Elec to spill the beans on Frieza's location, however the Heater advises to not bother since Granola would get washed by the Emperor anyway. Before Granola could get his hands dirty, he suddenly gets intercepted by another Heater named Gas. And at this rate, if a group saw me get embarrassed by a toddler, I'd just straight up retire. Elec instructs the Cerulean to pause his revenge until his gang are ready to help out, which leaves Granola no choice but to leave the Heater's base. Concerned about his enormous gains, Elec plots to get Frieza to kill Granola for them, so for this plan to begin motion, the Heaters go to analyze 7-3's head with the intention of extracting the location of Zuno, who Elec perceives as the ultimate intel broker of this universe. As Granola heads home from his 9 to 5, his journey is interrupted by none other than Soshiru for what happened earlier. The Cerulean proceeds to land his ship on a nearby asteroid, but when the mercenaries go to collect the bounty off Granola, it turns out that Oatmeal had been the one to reel them in with his voice. voice. All of Sashiru's allies are then shot from afar, and this had originated from Granola, who's perched up on a mountain using his cerulean right eye to snipe without the need of AI. Out of fear, Sashiru blasts away, wanting no more beef, impressing Oatmeal. However, Granola's disappointed in himself for not getting 100% shot accuracy, indicating he needs to grow way stronger to avenge his people. And that's when the Oracle Fish mutters about the shifting balance of the universe, insistent that its strongest will soon rise up. Anywho, Granola eventually arrives home to planet Cereal, where he requests for a member of a race called Shigarians to repair his ship. The Cerulean then wanders around the shopping centre in search for some spices, but also gets scammed from being charged for bottled water. Before he could leave though, the cashier tosses an extra bottle to make amends, asking Granola to give his regards to a certain old man. As it hits sunset, Oatmeal questions why his friend couldn't just live amongst the Shigarians. So Granola explains that the Heaters built the city specifically for them after the Cerulean Purge, where the Shigarians purchased the planet to finally settle down after losing theirs. The other reason Granola had chosen to do so was for the added bonus of witnessing his Cerulean home in ruins, etching the suffering committed by Frieza's men in his brain so that he never forgets. On Beerus' planet, the Destroyer ponders on the number of planets destroyed by the Saiyans, so Vegeta explains that his father demolished countless in his wake to build his own kingdom, confirming it happened even before King Cold took over, which the prince implies it was simply destiny for the Saiyans to go extinct. Beerus calls that notion ridiculous, confusing Vegeta on what it has to do with his people, so the Destroyer takes the liberty to flick the Hakai, exploding one of his decorative planets, leaving Vegeta struck in awe on how he could acquire such power. Beerus bluntly tells the prince that this power can never be wielded by a soul burdened by doubt, whilst calling him self-centered for the guilt Vegeta feels for the Saiyans' crimes. The Destroyer tosses the mortal straight into a tree, and finally reveals the truth he's hidden from Vegeta, which was mentioned in Resurrection F, that he was the one who suggested Frieza to exterminate the Saiyan race, mocking Vegeta for thinking it was merely destiny. Boiling in anger, Vegeta powers up all the way to Blue Evolution, firing his iconic technique to produce a smokescreen to gain the upper hand, but ultimately gets curb stomped by Beerus, who advises him to let go of his Saiyan past for Vegeta to grow past this point. The prince doesn't listen, lunging at the Destroyer. However, Beerus grabs Vegeta by the wrist to perform Hakai directly at the Saiyan's chest, launching him across the entire planet. Thankfully, Beerus had tweaked his attack just to destroy the prince's armor, and tells Vegeta that he has to remove any stray thoughts to recreate himself from scratch for this power to be obtained, insisting that before creation comes destruction. Anyway, Granola delivers the water to his Namekian pensioner Minato, and they begin discussing about Frieza's revival, which means there's no one hiring on Indeed. The Cerulean thinks about having to use the Dragon Balls to stop the Tyrant, which Minato completely prohibits since they're not made for revenge. Granola already acknowledges this, but finds it pointless anyway due to requiring a second ball which hasn't been found in 40 years. The Namekian also tells Granola not to use it for restoring planet Cereal back to its former glory, because it would displace the Shigarians already living here, encouraging the Cerulean to appreciate what they have before going to bed. Granola continues to stay awake, listening to the Shigarian version of X Factor, but out of nowhere, Sky Cereal interrupts the current program to give you the latest news. A boy was hunting for bugs at the local mountain where he found a peculiar object buried in its crevice. It appears to be an orange marble with 2 red stars engraved on the inside, which has the locals fearing it may house a mythical creature. Rest assured, professors have collected the ball for analysis in the lab, with some researchers suggesting this artifact originated from another planet entirely. We will report any of the findings of this ball as soon as possible, so for now, Sky Cereal wishes you a very good rest of your night. Granola stares at the TV, realizing they've got a hold of the second Dragon Ball, so he sneaks into the lab, stealing the orb without being detected, and places them together, chanting the spell given by Minato to summon the wish-granting dragon. This causes a blue mythical creature named Torombo to emerge from the orbs, and this has to be one of the more unique dragon designs because its head resembles that of an axolotl. Torombo states that he can grant any single wish to the summoner's desires, so with no hesitation, Granola demands to become become the greatest warrior in the universe. The dragon clarifies that he'll become the strongest mortal, which Granola accepts, but Torombo explains he can't increase a being's strength beyond their latent potential. The Cerulean is about to pack his bags up to head home, however the dragon informs him that it's still indeed possible if Granola agrees to a certain condition. So just like that, the Cerulean accepts the offer, hoping to do whatever it takes to avenge his people. At the same time, Vegeta is trying his best to use Hakai on the stone, however Beerus notices he only broke it with a standard ki blast. The Destroyer conceptualizes his move, describing it as turning something into nothing whilst demonstrating the technique on a slightly larger rock. However, this came at a heavy cost of burning the latest issue of God Comics, and me personally, I was surprised that Beerus had hobbies that didn't involve sleeping or eating. Goku then wonders if there's anyone in the universe that surpasses both him and Vegeta, to which Whis replies he doesn't know but could very well show up any minute now. The Oracle Fish continues to yap about the strongest rising up, so Vegeta exclaims it's him, exploding a single pebble on his finger with Hakai, affirming that he'll progress soon enough by destroying much larger objects. Back on Cereal, the Dragon Ball split across the sky, with us now gazing upon the very first Cerulean Rapunzel. Granola then lifts up a massive boulder, destroying it with a technique similar to Hakai, just as the prince had strived for, and the explosion eventually wakes up Minato, who realizes his Dragon Ball is missing. The Namekian limps outside, inquiring if Granola really made a wish, to which Granola discloses he's become the universe's strongest to ensure Frieza is killed once more. Minato lectures the Cerulean on how that power could spring new enemies out the woodwork, and that being the strongest today does not guarantee it'll stay like that tomorrow, but Granola flat out ignores his advice, deciding to ask Elec for the Emperor's location. He then leaves Minato behind, zooming away on his ship, which Whis notices on his staff, and in one of the most tragic moments, Granola gives himself a free haircut for the angel to finally understand what the Cerulean has done. I don't care, Granola looked so much cooler with his hair all the way down. Like, we barely see any fighters in Dragon Ball to start with who have Rapunzel hair barring Raditz and the Super Saiyan 3s. The Cerulean then storms into the base, demanding for the Emperor's location again, so Elec reminds him that he's simply an ant compared to the dinosaur that is Frieza. Granola now flaunts his title as the universe's strongest, however the Heaters assume he's been hit on the head, with one named Oil ready to see him out. The USA's finest lunges in with a punch, so Granola taps him on the belly, sending the Heater flying into a brick wall. Oil runs after the Cerulean only to end up munching on leather, and at the current moment the Heater can't seem to land a single blow for the life of him. Granola then lasers a small part of the floor, and just then Oil realizes he's fallen for a trick that's ripped straight out of Looney Tunes. Afterwards, the Heater rises, launching the rubble at the Cerulean, so he begins to use some of his gifted power such as the Hakai to turn it into dust. Another Heater, Maki, utilizes abilities inspired by Psylocke to aid her brother, but Granola casually weaves past her, and that's when she notices,
damn, he really about to rock my shit.
Gaston intervenes to save his sister, but Elec instantly tells him to stand down, now understanding how powerful Granola has become. The Heater's leader questions what happened to him, which the Cerulean refuses to elaborate, so Elec tells him he has every right not to leak Frieza's location, causing Granola to reveal his use of the Dragon Balls. Elec assumes Planet Cereal has its own orb, so sadly telling Granola that he's actually puzzled on the Emperor's whereabouts himself, so the Cerulean tells the Heater to chop chop. This confuses Maki, because Ceruleans are meant to live for around 200 years, with Granola only being 50, and that's when he finally reveals what condition he accepted to become the strongest. I kid you not, Granola was so insane that he sacrificed his remaining 150 years of life in exchange for this power. Torombo explained it works by condensing any power he could have obtained during his lifetime, and that the number of remaining years left to live is merely 3. I do wonder how the wish applies to someone with immense potential like Gohan. Like, would he become the strongest without needing to take the penalty? Who knows? Once Granola left the Heater's base, they're able to set up an entire banquet for dinner, where Elec recognizes his gang's throne is in danger if Granola takes out Frieza. Also, it wouldn't help them if the Cerulean took out the Emperor's army as well, since the Heaters need the soldiers to make more bread. As he gulps down the glass of wine, Elec brews up the idea to manipulate the Saiyans by pitting them against Granola in your typical jumping, which would also include declined the Cerulean due to Goku and Vegeta being members of the tribe he despises most. And in absolute glee, Elec stabs the roast chicken, knowing that if Granola is up against that same pair, it'd be game over for him. Meanwhile, on the Destroyer's planet, his attendant quizzes Goku on what the difference is between angels and himself, so the Saiyan answers by saying he does not have a halo, but
survey says
Whis corrects Goku, explaining that angels are always in a state of Ultra Instinct, whereas the Saiyan equates it to a transformation. The angel does the cleanest moves with his staff before healing it back into his palms, whilst confirming the divine technique won't have a stamina drain if Goku can use it in his base form. As for the silver hair, Whis discourages the Saiyan from tapping into it unless the situation is dire enough for a last resort. Anywho, Elec prompts his two siblings to visit Zuno so they could extract intel on the Saiyans before heading to Earth. However, Gas doesn't go with them, questioning if this is all necessary to kill Granola, to which Elec explains he's doing so for safe measure. Vegeta is then saddened he could not get a turn to fight the Cerulean, and that's when his brother puts a hand on the shoulder, affirming he did so for Gas's sake, by mentioning that his time will soon come to surpass Frieza for the Heaters to become this universe's supreme. Things are not going so well on Zuno's place for the other pair, specifically Maki, who must kiss the guy to get the answers to their questions. Oil pushes his sister to kiss already, so Maki screams for him to do it instead, but one of Zuno's disciples informs them that he in fact does not swing that way. Begrudgingly, Maki gives Zuno a peck on the cheek, which enables them to ask 10 questions since he likes them feisty, so Vegeta pulls out the notes, beginning to inquire. Meanwhile, Goku is gradually adjusting to Ultra Instinct in his base form by evading Whis' staff, but also blocks with a tap of a finger to then treat it like a pogo stick. Vegeta is slowly improving on his destructive capabilities by using Hakai on incoming logs being chucked down by Beerus, but that's when the Destroyer tests his training by sending a much larger log, to which the Prince obliterates with all his might along with the whole waterfall.
you're a donut. You're so stupid.
After jotting down each Saiyan's weaknesses, Maki and Doyle head to Chi-Chi's house where they ask her to bring Goku to Earth for a job tailored to him. Bulma then pulls out the communicator to talk through the Angel staff, explaining there's a villain Vegetas want them to beat, including a massive paycheck for their troubles. What really entices the Saiyans though is the mention of their enemy being the universe's strongest, likely the guy that the Oracle Fish was referring to. Before their departure, Beerus flicks an earring at the Prince to symbolize his use of Hakai, so the Angel responds by marking Goku's gi with his trademark symbol, throwing down the gauntlet. Maki and Doyle leave the room to steal the Dragon Radar from Bulma's lab, but notice that nothing's being detected since Earth's Dragon Balls have turned to stone. However, the interesting fact about Planet Cereal's orbs is that they never turn to stone, which means they can be used instantly. Eventually, Goku and Vegeta arrive on Earth, where both wives tell them to stay safe on Planet Cereal before boarding onto Vegeta's spaceship. Vegeta's suspicious how a decimated tribe could afford such a lavish aircraft, so Maki makes up a fib about how it's specifically made for the two of them. Since they have to wait 18 days to arrive on Cereal, Goku gets to dining on the scrumptious gourmet whilst the Prince transforms into Water Vegeta to train for the time being. That's when Granola gets a call from Maki, who deceives the Cerulean into thinking a pair of Frieza's assassins are gunning for his head. Granola's actually happy about this since he can force them to reveal Frieza's location. However, Maki mentions that these assassins are members of the Saiyan race, causing the Cerulean's jaw to drop to the floor. Finally, Granola flies upwards to view the ruins of his home, vowing to avenge his Cerulean brothers and sisters after half a century. Prior to the Granola arc, the Saiyans had to battle against the Goat Moro, so if you're interested about his arc, please click here.